What's up, everybody? What's up, MGTOW? So in this video, I want to talk real quick about vaping, since my last vaping video got pretty good response. So I want to talk about two topics in this video. The first being the whole lung damage issue that's in the media, and also I want to talk about switching from a pre-made atomizer to a rebuildable atomizer, or RTA. And so as far as the lung damage thing, I think there's a lot of conflicting reports in the media about does vaping cause lung damage or not, and I think in general the short answer is it depends what you put in it. Because, for example, you could put colloidal silver in there and then allegedly that would, stop you from getting lung infections or help you prevent lung infections, or if you have a lung infection, it could allegedly, help cure that lung infection, allegedly. But then again, if you put gasoline in the vaporizer and inhale that, it's probably going to cause lung damage immediately. Now, there's a few ways I can think that you could get lung damage from using a vaporizer. The first, most simple way would be if you're just hitting the cotton dry. Like, you don't put any vape juice in there, and then the heating element's just burning the cotton. You're not vaporizing anything because it's just heating up the cotton. It's actually burning the cotton. You're inhaling cotton smoke. So that could be one way. Somebody that's drunk might do that. They might not notice that there's no juice in there and they're burning cotton. It'd be pretty hard for someone to do that, but I don't know. Some people can probably do that. Now, the other way that I can think of, since I've seen in the media that most of the people that got lung damage were using pre-made cartridges filled with stuff already. And so if you're going to extract like oils from a plant, like say for instance lavender or something like that, there's three ways you could do it. You can either cold press it, which is just basically just taking the plant and smushing it down like in a mortar and pestle or some type of machine that will just press the oil straight out of the plant with no, chemicals or anything like that. Or you could distill it, like I'm sure you've taken science class, you just heat up the plant in a tube and then the vapor goes up into a tube and then you got to cool the tube and then separate the oil from the alcohol. That works too, but that's obviously more difficult. Or the third way you can do it is with solvents. And you can just take solvents and, basically you run it through the plant material and then that will extract the oil from it. But the problem with that is that you have to kind of know what you're doing. So you have to use medical grade solvents. Like, for example, you can use like a medical grade butane, but it has to be medical grade. Like if you just use roncinol or whatever and you try to use that, it's got all types of added metals and it's got that stuff that they use to add the smell to it. So that's not pure, and that could leave residue and stuff like that in the extraction that you're making, and that could cause lung damage. Now, from the reports that I've seen in the media, it does kind of seem like this is a big possibility that it's what's happening, is that people are getting these plant extracts and people are improperly using solvents. And then if you improperly use the solvents or you don't use medical grade solvents, then there could be a lot of solvent remaining in the material. Because basically, like once you run the solvent through the material and you drain it out, you've got to evaporate all the solvent out of the material. Otherwise, some's going to be in there. And so, like I said, if you're using like nail polish remover or, rubbing alcohol or even like a low grade butane or some other type of gas like that, and you don't evaporate all of it out completely, then there's going to be some remaining in there. And then the person's going to be inhaling that solvent as well as the material. And from what I've seen, it kind of seems like that's probably what's going on, because if you don't, like I said, if you don't know exactly what you're doing or you're not doing it in a lab or something like that, no one's testing it, there might be some remaining solvents left in your extracts, and then you just put that in the cartridge or whatever, and people are going to inhale that. Now, saying that, it does seem like a lot of the media push for this is coming from the tobacco companies. I mean, I can't say for certain, but you can see that within the states that were trying to ban it like a few months ago, that there was a huge tobacco lobby in most of those states. And I mean, who else would be against people switching to a healthier alternative to smoking cigarettes besides the tobacco companies? Now, some people have an even further conspiracy where they're saying that it might possibly even be the medical industry in general that's pushing for it because, let's face it, they make a lot of money off of sick people, and people switching to healthy alternatives doesn't make them any money. But I won't go as far as to say that, but there definitely is evidence of tobacco companies lobbying heavily in the states that were trying to ban vaping, so there's evidence of that. Now, as far as switching over from a pre-made atomizer to a RTA, the reasons why I did it was mainly because of the fact that I just didn't like throwing out those big replaceable atomizer things, because basically it's like a big, probably like 1.5 inch diameter by 2 inch long piece of stainless steel with a tiny little piece of cotton in it, like the amount of cotton that's on the end of a Q-tip. And you can't take the cotton out because the way that they design them is that they're kind of glued in there, and once you try to start taking it apart, the ground wires fall out, and basically they just make it so that you can't take it apart and put it back together and just stuff your own cotton in there. So I was using those for a while, and once I found out about the RTA, which is a rebuildable tank atomizer, I switched over to that, and basically it's basically the same thing. It's still a tank, and you just fill it up and it works. But basically what you have to do is you get these small gauge wires. Like I've got like a 26 gauge wire and like a 30 gauge. So it's like a really thin wire. And then you just wrap them around the end of a computer screwdriver. And then you stick them in the thing in the grounds and screw it in. And then you have to thread the cotton through. And basically it's a lot more efficient. It's a lot cheaper. And it's also a lot better for the environment in a lot of senses, because instead of having to throw away that huge cylinder of stainless steel, you just have to throw away a tiny 1 inch piece of cotton, and it's organic cotton. So it's a lot better for the environment. And also the fact is that you don't have to use as much heat on it. So the battery lasts longer too. And also I guess if you're kind of into rolling cigarettes, like I was rolling cigarettes before, so it's more of like a thing where you got to fiddle around with it a little bit. Not very much. I only change it out probably once every 2 weeks, and I don't change out the coil because you can just heat up the coil and it burns clean, and then you just replace the little tiny piece of cotton. So, really some other reasons why I like the tank, the specific tank that I got, it has top airflow instead of bottom airflow. So the juice doesn't leak out all over the battery part, which is really good because you don't want the battery to get wet. And it also saves juice because the one I had before, the juice was coming out of the bottom of the airflow holes all the time. And it's you're constantly wiping it off with a towel and trying to keep the juice from falling out. I don't have to worry about that now because it's got top airflow holes. Now, one of the problems that I had with it when I first got it, I thought it was going to be more difficult because some people say, oh, it's so difficult to figure it out. And I was figuring out how to wrap the wire and get that in there to the right ohms and stuffing the cotton in there. There's a lot of debates about how you should stuff the cotton in there and whatever, but it's really not that complicated. But the problem that I had was that the juice that I was using before, which was a 90% vegetable glycerin, it was just too viscous. And for the cotton, and it wasn't absorbing enough fast enough to the point where, it was absorbing it as fast as it was getting heated up and burnt off or vaporized off. So I did have to change the juice a little bit. Now, just for the record, I don't sell any of the things that I make. I don't sell any of the juice that I make. I just use it for personal use because, you'd have to have a license or something like that, and I don't really feel like doing all that. So it's just much easier for me to use it for personal use, and it's a lot cheaper. But the juice that I was using before, like I said, it was a 90% vegetable glycerin. So I had to tone that down to about a 60% vegetable glycerin, and then it's 30% propylene glycol, and then 10% flavoring in a 100 milliliter bottle. And I also toned down the nicotine to about 20% from 30%. So that works better. I definitely don't get any spit back or anything. And like I said, I can do it at a lower heat. so I don't use the battery as much. And I mean, I guess the only real con of it is that, I mean, yeah, you kind of have to pay attention to what you're doing at first. There's a little bit of a learning curve, like maybe like a week or two of you fiddling around with it and figuring out how to get it to work how you want it to work. But once you get it like that, then it really only takes about 2 or 3 minutes to change the cotton out whenever you want to change the cotton out. So, I mean, you could say that one of the cons is that it takes more time than just getting a replaceable one and just sticking it in there and you don't have to pay attention to it. But really, it doesn't take that much longer. So it's more just, you know, if you want to take that time to learn how to do it or not. And I mean, besides that, I'm trying to think if there's any other kind of negative aspects to it. I mean, I can't really think of any. I mean, I guess that's really it. It's just that if you really just don't want to spend the time or you don't think you can learn how to do it, I think that pretty much anybody can learn how to do it. And, you know, besides that, I guess if you don't want to switch to like something with propylene glycol in it and you just want to use 100% VG, then it's not going to be the best way to do it either. So I guess that's really it. Just want to talk about switching over from that and also just talk about the lung damage issue, which, you know, I said it's probably pushed by the media a little bit too much because I just don't see how inhaling vapor can cause lung damage in the same way as inhaling smoke. Because, like, for instance, if you put your head over a pot of boiling water, it's not going to cause lung damage. It's vapor. It doesn't have carcinogens and things like that in it because it's not burning anything. So that's it. Have a good day and go MGTOW.